The deadly B2B startup marketing sins and how you can fix them. Welcome back to a fresh episode of BreakingB2B.com. I'm your host, Sam Dunning. And if you want to join thousands of B2B legends enjoying past podcast episodes, daily B2B marketing tips, insights, and more, check out our daily newsletter over at BreakingB2B.com. So today, I'm joined by Anna Furmanov. Anna is the founder over at Furmanov Marketing Consulting. She's also host of a top B2B show called Modern Startup Marketing Podcast. Anna, welcome to the show. How's it going?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's going well. You know, you're pretty good at marketing with your deadly B2B startup marketing sins title, like starting something with deadly. People are like, oh, I have to listen to this.
The clickbait and hook is real, that's for sure.
Yes, it's real.
So before we dive in, we're going to be talking about some of those sins. We're going to be talking about kind of how you can address them. We'll also dive a little bit into some of the frameworks you use, Anna. And if we've got time, we'll dive into kind of what the top channel is for driving inbound for your business. So as we always do, let's dive straight into it without beating around the bush. What are some of those deadly sins, with that clickbaity title again, that you're often seeing when you're working with B2B startups on the marketing front? What are those absolute no-nos?
Yeah, and I think this ties back into my process and why I start with I don't start with what typically clients come on to talk to, or prospects come on to talk to me in a call, and they're like, we need to figure out in our inbound engine. And usually that's what they say usually. And I'm like, but do you need to figure out your inbound engine right now? Or do you need to step back and actually go under the covers and see what's going on with your foundational stuff, your basic marketing principles, and understanding who are you for? Do you know them enough? Do you understand what they're going through? Do you understand the impact that the problem is having on them? And have you had those conversations with enough people, with enough of your customer super fans, with enough warm prospects to find that thread that continues to repeat and pull out those insights and use them in your messaging, in your positioning, on your website, wherever you live online? So that's I would say is one of the most you can call it a deadly sin.
Yeah.
I would say it's, one of the biggest problems that I encounter, because when I talk to early stage startups, some of them do get it. They're like, we need help. We're not sure how to message the right way. We're not sure if we understand who our target buyer is. We're not sure if we've really zeroed in on who this person is. Can you help us? Right.
Yeah.
And can you help us figure out the messaging and positioning? But a lot of times they just want to start that inbound engine and get that, turn on the lever and get those leads coming. And that's just not how it works. So that's the biggest one, I would say.
I like it. So does that mean that typically B2B startup founders are moving too fast? Like, are they thinking right away, like, we need inbound, we need leads, whether that's for themselves, like selling as a founder, or maybe they've got kind of one or two max sales folk working with them and they want to feed them leads? Are they just thinking that that's too early when really they need to do some of the foundational stuff that you touched on there?
Yeah, I mean, I think moving fast early stage is really important. I think
Yep.
that you should move fast. I actually really love it when I asked, what marketing have you done? And they tell me, we've tried this, we've tried that, this didn't work, this had some good results. I love that. And I think that that's wonderful. Then they understand that things take time. You need to do proper, you know, prioritization of the things to spend your time on. They're being thoughtful. They're testing. Marketing is all about testing. And I get some perspective on things versus just starting completely from a blank slate. So I actually love talking to early stage startup founders that have already started to test and move quickly and try some things, and they give me feedback. So when you say, do they move too fast? Yeah, I think so. I think they just like jump in without doing, um, but they also don't know what questions to ask, right? Maybe they don't know what questions to ask. How do we find out that common thread for our positioning, for our messaging? I think that a lot of them do have a sense, a general, because they have to sell, they have to get customers, things have to
Mm,
work. But the early customers that come in, a lot of times they're the ones that are, they're the friendlies. You're connected to them through your VCs. Like, hey, you should talk to these guys. We also invested in them. They could use the product that you're building, right?
yep.
So those types of sales conversations look differently from like the next 10. Those first 10 look different from the next 10. So you really do have to get tighter around who are you for, what you're solving for them, how to position yourself, how to get them to, go beyond the status quo of what they're doing today. And that's really hard stuff. And that's like iterative. It's never done, because of this idea that like your first 10 customers look different from your next 10 from your next 10, right?
Got it. Got it. A lot to dive into already. A lot to dive into. So, what do you typically see? And we can touch on some of the foundational stuff like researching the customers you're going after, understanding the problems that they're facing, how you can address that, how you can overcome status quo with your messaging, whether that's on ads, your website and beyond. What do you often see, like when early stage startup founders are coming to you for help with their marketing? Is there often things that you see that they've perhaps tried and maybe has gone well or hasn't gone well, or they quite often like stick a load of cash in one channel or one strategy, and it's just like the totally wrong thing to do when you need something else in place before?
Uh, it's all over the place.
Yeah,
I mean, really, when they try things, it's all over the place, and
right.
that's the problem. And they're like, we've tried this, we've tried that, it's all over the place, and like they have a sense of like, well, we should be putting out content. We should probably be on this channel. We're trying. There's nothing's really happening. Is it
Mm,
working? We're not sure. We know we should be writing some blog posts. We know we should, and everything is like we know we should be, so we're doing it, but is it working? And they're not sure. How do you know something is working? Like their expectations are maybe here, and the thing that they've tried is here. Um, so yeah, and I just got off a call yesterday, actually. That's why this is top of mind for me.
okay.
The founders try all sorts of things, right? Because they've got targets, they've got sales targets.
Hmm.
So I got off a call yesterday where we talked about how they're getting thousands of website visitors over a couple weeks. And at first I was like, that's amazing. You're getting thousands of website visitors. Great. And then they're like, yeah, and they're converting at, 3.5% to the call to action that's on their homepage. And I'm
Right.
like, that's amazing. That's great. That's great that they're converting. So you got all these. And then they're like, well, of those people, we set up calls with four. I'm like,
Oh,
okay, four. There, that's four. That's not zero. And then I asked them, well, how many of those four are qualified and actually are, an opportunity? And it's zero. And so you're starting from what sounds like amazing numbers, thousands of people
mm,
come to your site, but then does it turn into anything? And when it doesn't, it's like, okay, well, you're coming at it from the wrong place. You're coming at it from, well, where are these people coming from? It ended up being that they're getting the wrong target audience to come to their
right.
site. So of course it's not turning into opportunity. And so I think the attention is there. They know they have to like go out and talk about what they're building, but is it to the right person? Is it somebody that's a decision maker? Is it somebody that has the money to purchase what you have to offer? Because ultimately you have to make money, right? It's a business. And so the channels that they actually end up going out and spreading awareness and talking about what they're building might be the wrong ones. So it's wasted efforts. So but I really like to go through that, right? Have that conversation, understand like what have you tried? What results are you seeing? And we can
Mm,
kind of like pick it apart and see like, is it working for you? No, it's not. Okay, so you have to kind of like go back, start from the foundational stuff. Who are you for? Who's going to pay for this? Who has the pain point? Who's going to pay for the thing that you're making? And this is just like very foundational work that should not be skipped.
yeah, yeah. Something we see all the time, right? It's like when folks will say to me, "Well, we've tried SEO, but it just didn't work." And then what you found out is that they basically said to their marketing manager or their marketing lead, "Oh, we've not really done any SEO. Competitors are constantly showing ahead of us in organic search results when people need our offer or compare us to alternatives." They task them with putting together a bunch of blog posts. They pump them through ChatGPT. A few months later, they've got a bit of an uptick in traffic, but none of it's converted because there was no real strategy. They didn't identify what those focus clients were actually searching for when they had a need. They didn't build
Right.
content to hit those pain
Right.
points and resonate. So a little bit like what you said there with that founder that was perhaps driving traffic, maybe from, I don't know, Facebook ads, another channel, wherever it was, but didn't
Yeah,
identify.
they're actually, I think, going in person, doing presentations. So that,
Okay.
and that's not easy, right? That's a lot of time, that's a lot of effort. That's not digital. That's in person. It's not virtual. So,
It's a lot of time and
um,
effort.
yeah, that's right. That's right.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, that's a good point. So we've said that kind of some of the top deadly sins, kind of wanting to build an inbound engine perhaps too fast, all over the place marketing, all over the place content, maybe getting the wrong targeting, the wrong channels, and then as a result, not getting kind of qualified prospects in through the door.
Right. The other thing I've heard too, which is coming up a lot actually, is early stage startups. They're still small. You got maybe 5, 10 people on the team. And they're doing both the product-led growth motion as well as
Right.
an enterprise sales motion.
Right.
And those are very different.
Mm,
And I think it's because they haven't quite figured out which one to go with. Like they could do
mm,
both. They could. Um, but I almost want to be like, you need to pick. You need to pick. You need to make those tough decisions from the very beginning, and you need to just like feel it out, right? So that by the time you talk to somebody like me, we have a pretty good roadmap of where we want to go and who, you have to have a handful of customers, super fans that love you. Because otherwise, like, don't bring someone in yet. Like, keep going, keep trying to like nail who you're building this thing for. Or else it'll be wasted effort working with like a strategic marketing person to make those efforts go further faster.
yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I appreciate founders are ambitious. Like I'd like to think I was the same, but then I suppose if your targeting is so vastly different, like for example, at one end of the spectrum, you're trying to get a bunch of free signups for a product-led growth, PLG motion, and perhaps that's like lower down the market, maybe startup level businesses or mid-market you want to work with. And on the other side, you're trying to acquire huge enterprise clients for big ticket
Yeah,
deals that are super long
that
sales
looks so
cycles.
different. That looks so different.
Vastly
Yeah.
different. And if someone's landing on your homepage and you're trying to appeal, like on your website, and you're trying to appeal to both kind of maybe startups to get a free trial and at the same time huge enterprise clients, like that's going to be so messy, I'd imagine, in terms of your messaging and your offer.
Right, right. And that doesn't mean to sit like, I'm not saying you can't do that. You can. It's just like after you figured something out, not from the
Mm,
get-go. So for example, like I'm a Nevadic advisor, and on their pricing page, you can see that they have a plan, like one seat, and it's $50 a month. And it's
mm,
great for startups, right? But they also have enterprise, more custom
okay.
package. And so for that, someone has to get on a call and like talk through what their needs are, right? And how many seats and all that stuff. And it's going to be more custom. But they did not have that 50, they did not have the $50 one seat plan. They added it on just recently. They've been, doing this for years. So I think you build that out over time, but not just like both ends of the spectrum right away. That's my, I mean, that's my recommendation, because it's just like you want to really zero in on who you're for, it's just going to be really hard to do that if you have two completely different target buyers in mind. And usually you should just have one decision maker, one user, right? And that should be enough.
Yeah. It's gonna be tough as well, especially if you've got like limited funding or if you're bootstrapped and you're trying to go after such a massive amount of different types of clients.
Right.
It's gonna cut your ad spend dry. It's gonna probably harm your messaging. It's gonna get confusing if you've got a sales team. So that strategy is key. Okay, so we've talked about kind of some of those deadly sins. Let's get into how we can get B2B founders, startup marketing teams on the right tracks. You touched on a few of the points around kind of customer research, understanding problems you fix, understanding your target buyers, getting first 10 customers under your belt. Is that what you should be doing, or is there almost a step when you're talking to early stage founders that you say, look, this is what you got to do first before you do anything else?
Get those customers. Like I can't start my projects with early stage startups unless they have customer super fans, like 5 to 10, because then I'm going to be talking to them. I schedule 1 hour long conversations with their customer super fans and just customers and warm prospects. And also I've talked to lapsed buyers as well. Like that's really fascinating because they shouldn't be lapsed. And there's a reason why they are. Like something just was not a good fit. And I want to uncover why that is. That's really interesting information too. So get those customers and figure out how to close deals first before you want to figure that out before you start revving up the marketing foundational, marketing work, not foundational stuff, but marketing engine stuff.
Yeah. So naturally you want to get some customers in the door, and you touched on it earlier, whether that's leveraging your network, past clients, partnerships. If you are funded, I imagine sometimes VCs can link you up to potential prospects.
That's right.
But basically, like I've done with Breaking B2B, and I'm sure you were the same when you started up your customers, it's sweat equity, really, isn't it? It's putting in the graph, putting in the hours to realize, like, who can I tap up? Who can I message? Who can I call? Maybe what podcast can I guest on? What are the sweat equity things that I can do that aren't going to cost a ton of cash, but are going to cost my time and effort to bring those leads in the door?
Yeah, that's it. That's what I did. I emailed my network and I was like, I'm doing this thing now. Do you need any help? And that's how it starts. That's how the ball starts rolling.
Got it. I don't want to spend too long on customer research because we've had folks like Ryan Paul Gibson and stuff like that on the show giving kind of tips and insights on how you should run customer interviews. Are there any kind of focused in insights that you tend to lean towards grabbing from those customer calls?
When I really try to zero in on what's the biggest value that having this product gives you. And they start telling me, and I really want to dig, like, why is that important to you? I think that really is what I try to focus on, because I want to figure out what is the differentiated value of the product, because that really comes in handy when you're talking about positioning yourself in the marketplace, positioning against, status quo, which is the biggest competitor typically. And so that's really what I look for, like the common thread that's all about what is the unique value you're getting from this product. I also ask, like, what's the trigger that made you want to reach out? A lot of times, though, the early customers, they're like, oh, I got connected through so-and-so. And I'm like, oh, that's not going to be like the trigger that I want to hear. That's not really helpful, but that's sometimes interesting, right? Like I couldn't take it anymore. I was using spreadsheets and blah, 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 and this, and like this process didn't work anymore. And I was looking for another solution. And then I just get to know, like, one of the things I enjoy about voice of customer research is getting to know that person. I've talked to people from like in all types of companies doing all sorts of roles, although I do tend to have more clients that are in ed tech and dev tech, completely different too, by the way. Like more, ed tech is more just education is completely different industry, and even gov tech stuff I've worked in. So I just like get to know with a clean slate, what does this person do? What do they do in their job? I had no idea that this job exists, or like I had no idea that they had all this oversight, and I had no idea how hard some of these challenges are for them. Wow, that must be so rough. I find out so much interesting information.
Mm.
And so that's kind of what creates like the more that you get to know about customers. People say this all the time. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but the more you can like get into their shoes and have empathy for their situation and not just focus on, we have a product for you, will you buy it? We have this thing that we built, will you pay for it? Right? It's more about them and understanding their pain points and understanding who they are as a person, and like why they would find what you built for them valuable.
Gotcha. Okay. So we've got 10 customers. We've interviewed said 10 customers, or you've done that for them. Perhaps an outsider's done that for them. Where are we utilizing these insights? How can we pull these nuggets that we've learned and put them into marketing action?
Yeah, I mean, my process is very bare bones. It's just like I take notes and then I go back in and I look and I highlight and I look across the people and I look to see like, okay, this person said this. Is it similar to what that person said? Like they have a similar job title. Sometimes I get job titles that are different. So you have to like look at the nuances and understand like this person is higher level, this person is lower level. They might be thinking about, the usage of the product in different ways. But I highlight those things that are common threads, and I put together a marketing foundation deck. So this each slide is basically like, why do we exist? Who are we for? What are we offering? What are we building for them? Top unique benefits, top unique features. Everything is just like very clearly laid out. Features of our product, competitors analysis, positioning, messaging, and then we do some keyword research after that. So I like to go into this deck. It's like really structured, and it's for the whole team to come back to, not just for your marketing person, not just for me as I work with my clients, but the whole team then is on the same page. A lot of times
Gotcha.
early stage startups don't have that same page place. It's
Yeah.
all in the founders' heads, right? This creates like, this is where we're all on the same page so that we can talk about what we're building in the same way on sales calls. We can make sure that our website messaging is on point. And if it's not, then we update it. Make sure that our, business pages on social media are on point. And if it's not, then we update it. So it's like a nice central location for everything.
Nice. Okay. All right. So we put it all basically into a deck that's highlighting the common, I'm guessing, the patterns and the feedback that we're getting around perhaps kind of problems that they were facing, impact of the problem,
Yes.
perhaps why they chose to work with you as opposed to a competitor.
Yeah, and
How
I actually go through and like highlight in the deck too, right? So that we zero in on like what are the key things that people said. I like to bring direct quotes from conversations and include it in the deck.
Nice.
So yeah.
Got it. Yeah, yeah. So it's using the actual words, I guess, out of the customer's mouth, as opposed to random ideas or jargon or
Yep.
another turbocharged or 20x headline, as we often see in tech.
Or that's right. Deadly sins. Deadly,
Hey,
deadly
cut
B2B
me some
startup
slack.
marketing sin. Deadly sins.
That's quite tame compared to some of my headlines. Cool. So we've got
Love
that
you.
there. We've got the deck. We've got a message from Carl, but we'll get that in a second, Carl. So we've got the deck together. What comes next? Do we start kind of putting this into play on some channels? Like, how do we put all this intel that we've gathered into best use into a play?
Yeah, the next step usually is, okay, we need to revamp our website, because the website was kind of made with good intentions, but we realized how off we are. The positioning is not quite right, or like the images we're showing, or we're missing case studies, or we're missing testimonials, or we're missing a bunch of stuff. We're missing a one level deeper product page. We're missing just like an easy way to navigate, like the top navigation bar, the top header banner, all that stuff, right? So it's time. Then it's time to revamp the website. What I like to do before revamping the website is actually bring in my SEO expert. We do keyword research, because I want to understand, like, are we using the right terms? Are there other terms that we should change? Just given that, there's a lot of competition for terms like this. Is there a better way to talk about what we do? And then also, should we create some new landing pages, not just like the typical 5 pages that we create when we're revamping a website, but does it make sense to create some other landing pages, maybe like us versus competition, right? When people are bottom of funnel and they're expecting to see the comparison page, because it's just like everybody talks about that competitor. You want to understand what's the difference, right? So put it on your website so it's very clear. So doing that keyword research is helpful. And then we move into the website work. So working on the brand design guide. The brand design guide is something that I put together, and it helps the designer understand like what's going to be, what are the mood boards, right? What mood board options should he put together? So things like, okay, we want these types of colors, we don't want these types of colors, these types of visuals. Do we want something sketched? Do we want something like photos? Do we want something super colorful? What's the personality? Is it going to be vibrant? Is it going to be simple, clean? Like, there's so many different directions to take. So this brand design guide helps a designer with the next step, which is the mood boards, the mood of the site. And so before even working on like any wireframing out of the homepage or product page or whatever, like we look at the mood of the site, which is actually one of the fun things, because there's so much you can do. You can like make it super dark. You can make it super light and airy. You can make it playful. You can make it geometric. It's a great, like, I love design, like, at heart, right? So I have fun with this with my designer, and I like to be really involved in this process. So mood boards, that's what he works on. And then we start creating the first page, the home page, obviously the most important part of your website. So I wireframe out the home page, and that kicks off the website creation process.
Nice. So a lot there. Something. How do you tackle with websites? Like when, because I have my point of view on this. I've done so many solo episodes where I talk about B2B website
Yep.
design, messaging process, and SEO and all that good stuff you've touched on there. How do you balance what a founder wants out of the website, i.e., they want it this style, they've seen a competitor that does it like this, and they want these colors, they want the message to say how great the product is, as opposed to using all this research that we've gathered from actual customers, what they care about doing, improving, or
Yeah.
actioning. How do you get that balance when the founder has their perspective of what's good and what we actually know is going to work based on customer research, or what's likely to work, I should say, because you never 100% know this stuff?
I work with early stage founders that, like, I love it when they tell me what they love and what they hate. And like, I always ask for examples. What are brands you love? What are websites you love? What are brands you hate? What are websites you hate? That's really helpful. If it's like crickets, that's really hard. Then I have to come up with everything myself, right? I also, in general, work with founders that are open to, like, what do you think, we should do? And then they also, like, we talk about the data part, the facts are your competitors look like this, we don't want to look like that, so we have to go a completely different direction. And I think that they are, nobody's really pushed back on that sort of thing. I think the larger companies, like the clients I've had that are 80, 100 people, typically I'm not revamping their website, but I am working on like a couple pages of the website. For example, they need other landing pages. Um, then it's really hard to be like, oh, you guys should have gone with like a different personality, because look how you're blending in, and you could have really had more fun with that. And so that's a little bit harder. But I feel like early stage startup founders are super open to my guidance, and they just want to, have fun with it, and also use the data, use the facts that they're getting, that I'm providing for them, right? With like, let's look at the competition, let's see what they look like. So I don't know, do you experience that? Do you experience pushback? I think like it's appreciated. Like, this is what we found, and this, you knew this was the process going in. We were going to find like a bunch of things, and we're actually going to now use the customer insights and positioning stuff on your website. So it's typically, I would say, like, the thing that we do work on is what they're experiencing in their sales conversations. They also have that knowledge. Like, when I said it this way, that really made them understand. When I showed them this diagram, that really made like things click. So it's together, we work together in terms of like, what do we showcase on the homepage? What do we showcase on the website to make it click? Because they're getting data too. We use both sets, right? What I get from talking to customers, what they get from talking to prospects that then they turn into customers.
Gotcha. To answer your question, not so much now for this business do I get pushback because of the way we're positioned. So it's very much, you can tell I'm the founder. I very much have a stance on B2B SEO and web design. I think a lot of folks that follow my content are clear that how I position that. Whereas at my last agency, where we work with kind of a bunch of anything from startup to larger companies, and we wouldn't always deal with the founders or the marketing execs. We'd deal with all kinds of folks within the organization. So that is where it leads to kind of people that perhaps aren't appreciative of customer research, maybe want to push their own ideas as opposed to going with kind of what target clients care about, the problems they fix, the jobs they want to get done, the main things they want to quickly learn, see, feel, and take action upon on a website in order to trust you enough to book a call or book a demo. So that was when I used to get a lot of pushback at my last agency. But since I've kind of positioned with Breaking B2B and how we've sort of set things up here, not so much. But that's how we've geared up in our messaging and the way we go to market. So yeah, I think that's an important thing to consider, like how you position yourself. And like you said, taking a step back, because a lot of where business goes wrong is when founders have these big egos and they think that they know better than prospects or customers, when we certainly don't. We've usually got a warehouse full of our stuff, or we've got unlimited supply of our software. We don't need to convince ourselves that we're the ones to buy. We need to convince our target clients that hit that demographic, have those problems, and have cash to invest in improving their business or life, right?
Totally. Going back to, by the way, I love Breaking B2B. Just like, that is such a, if I were to go back and rename my business, which I'm not going to rename it to Breaking B2B, obviously, but I didn't have any good idea when I started my business. So I'm like, let's just use my last name and tag on like marketing consulting. But if I were to change it, I would do something where it's really like very well positioned to, you know, what am I going to do with you right now? Right. You wouldn't talk to somebody that started a company called Breaking B2B if you weren't thinking of like how to break the status quo of B2B, right? If you were very traditional, you would not work with Sam because it just doesn't match up. So I love that you named your business Breaking B2B. I think you're getting the right customers then like trickling through.
Hey, appreciate it. So, okay, we've covered some good ground. We talked about kind of doing some customer research. We talked about leveraging the insights, the patterns, and then starting to put that into play into I forgot what you called it. You called it some kind of deck or book? I can't remember.
Brand design guide.
That was the one. Brand design guide.
Is it brand design guide or the marketing foundation deck? I don't know.
I think it's the marketing foundation deck. Then we talked about kind of using that as a playbook for your organization, and then going on to the website to then use those insights on, of course, key pages that you're going to build out. The other thing, because I want to talk a little bit, if we've got some time, on kind of going to market as well. But the other thing I sometimes see is like getting the balance right on websites, because sometimes founders want to get them out super quick. And that's when you might be quite thin on content, right? And you might have like home, about, features, pricing, book a call, like 5 or 7 pages, maybe start the blog section. But then I guess the other balance that you touched on is getting SEO right. And SEO, as you know, is tough to do with such a thin website if you only got a few pages. And you touched on some good points around having competitor pages, versus pages, alternative pages, best of pages, that kind of stuff. So it's often pushes back the timeline if you're doing more content on a website. But then I suppose it's that balancing act of, do we want it to rank really well on Google? Do we want to get an MVP out? Or do you want to kind of get an SEO masterpiece and build it out over time?
Right. I don't recommend getting an SEO masterpiece in when you're an early stage startup. I also just don't think that, like, I think, first of all, it's wrong to start with keyword research as the basis for your content strategy. I think, like, a lot of marketers probably by now agree, but maybe there are some that are still, I don't know what you think, Sam, but I think we can talk about content strategy. We're not even talking about that. But where SEO comes into play is more about, like, as you build your initial website pages, and we're not even talking about like the other pages, like the blog posts you want to like add some topics that you want to, put on your blog. I'm just talking about, like, are we using the right words with our positioning? Are there other words that we might want to, like, in this space that we might want to start to use? Sometimes also we talk about category design, and like, we don't really quite fit into a category that's out there, but we think like these 3 words would better explain what we're doing. And so we have those conversations too. But the SEO work, like, my stance on that is you don't have to be perfect with it, but once you put together your content strategy, you might have some ideas of, like, let's get these we know we need to get these pages. We know we need to work on, these specific pages. Let's get them going. But it's not like, okay, 1 blog post a week, right? Let's get 1 to 2 blog posts a week. It's not like that. It's more of like 1 a month. And what's it going to be about? And what are the ones that we should get on our list right now and make them really good? And that's it. And I would, spend more time on other things like, case studies. Do we have case studies? Are they good? Are they clearly there, available on the website? So that also is really important for bottom of funnel.
Yeah, it's a fair point. In fact, I'm quite the opposite. Most founders I tell to completely ignore SEO for a while. I'll say get to a certain amount of recurring revenue, then give a damn about SEO, because you need customers in the door. You need to prove concept. You need scalable revenue. And unless we've got kind of resource or cash that's been invested into the company to make SEO a good bet and kind of pump some decent resource and get some decent content flowing, there's no point in half-assing it. Like, there's no point in just like doing like you say, trying to scrape yourself thin, when as a founder, really, you could be a lot more better positioned to do other aspects of the business that are going to grow revenue until you've got that cash flow or that resource in place to make SEO a decent bet.
Yeah, because it's not cheap. It's not cheap to get. I mean, happy to work on it. Like, I've got the SEO expert, but it's a lot of effort. It's not cheap. It takes a long time. And do you really need to rank, first or second or third? Or are there other things where your time could be better spent?
So last one before we wrap things up. We've, like I said, we've covered some good ground. When it comes to, let's pretend we've got like we've put all our research into a decent, like, stage 1 website using all these insights that we've garnered from customer research and more. When it comes to kind of initial channels, and feel free to use perhaps your own business as an example, because I know that was a question we were going to get into, kind of your top inbound channel. But when it comes to founders and initially going to market, how do you normally advise them, like, when it is saying that they've already got their 10 customers they've perhaps got from network or similar existing relationships, partnerships, VCs, contacts, whatever?
Yeah.
How do you go about determining that?
Yeah, I mean, we go through a whole workshop on this. Prioritize your marketing channels and figuring out your content strategy. So the where I like to start is I'll list out all the possible channels. Like, everything is we can do anything. There's tons of things that we could do. And then we go through like this exercise where we rate them based on A, how easy is it to implement based on the current team that we have? And B, how much impact do we expect? And I would say like both of these things, you need a little bit of guidance, because especially if you haven't experimented with marketing channels and like putting out content and doing, social media posts, and you don't really know how much effort it is. You don't really know how easy it is. You don't know how the algorithm impacts things. You don't, so it's nice to have somebody that has seen how things are working across clients, has seen how things work across channels, because I also, I've got a podcast, I'm on LinkedIn, I have a newsletter. I'm not saying that I'm 100% doing amazing at everything, right? But I get a good sense of how things work and how things work together and how much effort it takes, right? So having like a partner that has that information to help you navigate when you're rating this sort of thing, that's really helpful. Plus, it's helpful if they've tried some stuff. Like we tried this, we realized like doing in-person events and getting people together at this bar every Thursday, it's been great, but it's hard, right? And we only got these people, not the people that are our target buyers, so that didn't work, right? I'm just making this up, but actually, I think I spoke to someone on my podcast, and that was one of their plays. They would just be like, everybody come, and then people would have drinks and socialize, and then they would like win deals from that happy hour that they created. So the sky's the limit. There are a ton of different things that you can do. Prioritizing is super important, because what I've found is working across clients, working on my own stuff, everything works. I don't know, Sam, if you agree with this, but like everything works. It's just a matter of making sure that you're not just blindly doing it. You did have those voice of customer conversations. You did find out how they consume content, where they hang out online, where they hang out offline, what events do they go to, what's their network situation, like what communities are they in, all that stuff. You have learned that, so you're not going at it blindly.
Sure.
And so then you're more capable of prioritizing in a more like thoughtful way.
Yeah.
So I think the hard part then is like, how much impact do we think this is going to have? How much impact do we think that going full into an SEO strategy is going to have on getting pipeline and revenue? How much impact do we think that if we do influencer marketing, how much will that impact our pipeline and revenue? And those are the conversations that we have.
I like it. I like the idea of putting together almost a list of every option that there is from like a marketing, whether that's covering, like you said, influencer marketing, ads, SEO, paid review sites, posting ourselves on LinkedIn, starting an email list, starting a podcast, starting a YouTube channel. You literally list every option out. I love that. And then you exhaust it. And then you kind of think, what is actually realistic? Like, do we have funding behind us, or are we bootstrapped? Like, what's going to be sensible here? What is going to give us the quickest return? And maybe you think like, maybe you balance out, maybe you do like, there's a couple sweat equity things we can do. Like maybe we do a podcast and that kind of fuels our content strategy for LinkedIn, and maybe an email list, but that's a bit of a push. So I'd probably just say LinkedIn and podcast. And then you say, look, we're going to do it as a bi-weekly to start with. So it's low lift or monthly. And maybe we interview like one ICP a month, or we do one solo episode 1 month, one interview ICP the next month, whatever cadence suits. And then you think, well, this is very nuanced to where your target market hang out. But maybe you think, well, our target market is searching on Google, so investing into paid search makes sense to get some leads in the door. And likewise, they're comparing review sites. So investing in G2 or whatever review site is relevant to us is going to get us some leads in the door. So that'll be our kind of first couple months. Then when we've got that cash flow from there, we'll maybe ramp up outbound or ramp up SEO or whatever makes sense. So working out all the options, weaving in that customer research of where they hang out, and then perhaps doing a bit of sweat equity stuff yourself, I think is a nice balance, I would have thought.
Yeah, and two things. So the first thing is, that's why I think it's so important to take in like, who do you have on the team? And different companies are built in different ways. And you might have somebody that is amazing with video. So how do you leverage that person's skill, right? They haven't been doing video. They've been doing something completely different, but we know they have that skill set. So taking that into account, and like founders, they're naturally good at podcasting. They want to do that. Like you take that into account, because it's not the same. If you have something like that, that further helps you differentiate from the other startups out there where they don't have somebody with that skill set that can help with, you know, the content strategy pieces and content distribution. So that's for the marketing channels. Then we talk about the content strategy, which is like, what are you actually going to say? And when I have my voice of customer research conversations, we talk about the things that matter to them, right? So I get some of that from there. But I also do a bunch of research on like, what's everyone else talking about? And what are the conversations that are still not being had? What are trending topics, right? And how can we tie the product that we're building back into the content that we're putting out there so that it's really specific to us and people think about us, and we have, you know, original things to say based on our leadership team's expertise or whatnot. So really finding that specific content wedge for each company. And then we map out like, okay, that if we're going to do this type of content across these channels, what does that look like? What is our go-to-market plan? And having like one page that makes it really easy to just like see and then go. And either they take it on, sometimes the founders take it on, sometimes they have, you know, people on the team. Rarely they have people on the team that will take it on, but sometimes the founders will take it at the early stage startups I work with.
Yep.
And so now what I started doing is, because I see the need is like, okay, you've helped us with the strategic stuff. Now help us get this going. I have a couple of people now that I think this is going to start happening more and more, where because of AI tools that are at our disposal, people like fractional heads of marketing can help clients with executing on that go-to-market strategy and creating that content and getting it out there. So it's pretty exciting to see this. I'm sure I'll be seeing more of this, you know, getting more involved, not just on the strategy piece, but also execution piece as a fractional.
Nice. One, we don't often get questions, but we've had a quick question. I'm happy to give my 2 cents if you want to give your 2 cents. Perhaps Annie, you've got might have some thoughts on this. Kyle has asked us, do you ever advise founders on hiring for the marketing team? And if so, what knowledge or experience to hire for?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. Sometimes they'll show me the you know, the blurb of like the hiring, what they're hiring for. My advice for who to hire as your first marketer is basically like, take somebody like me, and like I'm fractional head of marketing. You want to find that in the full-time person. So somebody that is really good at product marketing plus content marketing, somebody that's really good at product marketing plus growth marketing, right? And like pick the two things that that a person is really good at. I would say like either a mesh of those two first things that I said or a mesh of the other two things, and bring them in, because they're the ones that are, you just, product marketing you need from the get-go. You need someone that understands how to weave in insights, how to position, content is marketing. So you need somebody that understands, you know, the product, the content, or the product and the growth, and how to use the content to create and close demand. So yes, to answer your question, and that's who I recommend to hire first. I don't know, Sam, if you had other thoughts.
You're probably giving a much more sensible advice than me. Mine is like, I'm far from a hiring expert, right? Mine would be, before you even think about hiring as a founder, get to a certain level of monthly recurring revenue where you can know that it's not only going to be comfortable to take on this hire, but it's going to be absolutely fine and you'll have a good few months runway left. Then I would say I wouldn't even be that encouraged to hire a marketer first. I'd rather go for someone that's almost a jack of all trades. So they understand B2B marketing, But if we need them to do a few other bits and pieces, perhaps be involved in some project management, account management, maybe a little bit of sales, maybe help us with content, if they're open to that flexibility and they realize this is a super fresh startup and they are going to get chucked every task. The reason I say that is because when I got into this kind of world 13 years ago, that's basically how I got chucked in at the deep end. And there's no quicker learning curve. So as long as the person that you hire on board knows that's what's going down, then I think that can be a
Yes.
really valuable asset to a startup.
Yeah. Don't hire somebody that's never experienced the startup world, because it's very different, and you do have to take. I had these experiences too. Like, my job description did not say that when I was working at Fuda, it was a Series A startup back then. That I had to like plate food and take photos of it. I had to literally like put my hands over food. It was food delivery, food pop-up restaurants inside of
Oh, okay.
office buildings. And I had to like touch the food and make it look beautiful. I never had experience doing this before, but you're absolutely right. You're going to get involved in things you never expected to get involved in. Now I know so much about how to plate food. I can totally do it for you, Sam, if you ever need that. But
Sounds
yeah,
beautiful.
don't hire someone that expects structure and expects that the job description is listing exactly what they're going to work on. Good point.
Nice. Good way to wrap it up. Anna, very much appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your wisdom, all things startup marketing. So with that, please do tell the audience more about how they can learn from you, connect with you.
Yeah,
Best way to get in touch.
I'm on LinkedIn every single week. So find me there, and my podcast, as you mentioned, Modern Startup Marketing. So check that out. Give it a review if you've been following me. I get folks telling me like, "Thank you so much. I love listening to you." Somebody yesterday was like, "I love listening to you. You've got the same Midwestern accent as I do." And I'm like, "Okay, if that's why you listen to me, sure." So those are the main two places: LinkedIn, listen to my podcast, and you can check out my website, FurmanovMarketing.com. Thanks so much, Sam. This was fun.
No worries. Really enjoyed it. I will put all of those links below in the description. And with that, thanks once again, Anna, and thanks to the audience for tuning in. And if you want to check out any of our past podcast episodes or try out the daily B2B email tips, then head over to breakingb2b.com. And with that, we'll catch you on the next one for more no BS actionable tips to grow your B2B company. Catch you soon.